Now the team has to galvanize and play like they haven't played this year.
He doesn't really have a weakness when you watch him. He's athletic. He's big in size. He's a really good route runner, really good in space.
There's another opportunity for the Raider Nation. The Black Hole's been great everywhere we've been, home and away. Raider Nation's always loud.
I want people in the locker room who are ready to fight for what it means to be a Raider.
Welcome to Raiders Rundown from Raiders headquarters. I'm JT the Brick. Thrilled to have you today. We got a monster show lined up. You can follow it on Raiders YouTube. We get going on all the Raiders platforms. And I always love being in the building midweek to talk to the head coach, Antonio Pierce. Lincoln Kennedy will join us in a few minutes. Q Myers is our insider this week, and then later on in hour number 2, we'll have Vinny Bonsignore. So we got a big show lined up as the Raiders lost a really tough game in Kansas City on Black Friday, a one-possession game. They had the ball late, an opportunity to win that game on the road, and they came up short. I will say that was one of the toughest Raider games of the year. The team played as physical as they could. They went toe-to-toe with the world champions. I thought Aiden O'Connell clearly outplayed Patrick Mahomes. That says a lot, and Brock Bowers is an absolute superstar in this league. Absolute superstar, and is on pace to break the all-time Raiders single-season reception record for a rookie. Let that sink in. So there's a lot of good going on as this team's got a lot of fight. Obviously, the record is not what the organization wants. We'll get into that with the head coach, but there's no quit in this team, and they're playing hard. And now they got a really tough road trip to Tampa Bay to take on Baker Mayfield and the Buccaneers. And the Buccaneers are tied with Atlanta. We got Atlanta coming up on Monday Night Football at Allegiant Stadium. And the Raiders are playing spoiler. You knew that for well over a month, that the Raiders were in this situation. And they're playing with a lot of pride. And they're playing with heart and intensity, and everybody in this building today is fired up for every single day and every opportunity to play a team and maybe knock them out of the playoffs. And the Raiders are going to have a lot of teams left on the schedule that they'll be able to do that with. So it's going to be an interesting chance for the Raiders to show us what they have down the stretch. But I wanted to leave with Brock Bowers. Bowers was sensational again. No matter where he is on the field, he has turned into the number one target for the Silver and Black. And wherever you line him up, as you're watching on our YouTube feed, this guy's making plays, one-handed catches down the field. He is the number one target in the NFL. Not just the Raiders, he's the number one target in the NFL. And I love it. I love the targets. I love what Norv and Scott Turner are doing, getting him involved in the game plan. And he's just catching the ball and turning upfield. The ability to start and stop, as Rich Gannon told me, to have that extra gear. Once he catches it, he goes by linebackers and he attacks safeties. He's got great hands, as we know, and he's the ultimate competitor. This kid wants to win. He's a 2-time Mackey Award winner. He's a 2-time national champion. He is not into losing. Every game he wants to go out and win. I love his accountability. I love when he stands in front of the media in the locker room. Brock Bowers is everything that's right about this team going forward. And as much as we're not talking about next year, the draft and all of that, we go week by week. That's what Raiders Rundown is about. We touch on the last game. We preview the team that's ahead of us, and the team ahead of us right now is really good. And Tampa Bay is also up and down, but they put up numbers. And Baker Mayfield's got Mike Evans. They got players in Bucky Irving. Bucky Irving, in his last 2 games, 337 scrimmage yards and 2 touchdowns. And they like to throw. Baker can run. He keeps his head looking downfield. Evans is the best 50-50 ball catcher in the league, along with Devontae Adams, who was with this organization with his great years with the Packers. You just throw him a 50-50 ball, he'll go get it. And that's what we're seeing with Evans now. And the linebackers play of Levante Davis. This is an organization that's had great linebackers in their career, and they have, very similar to the Baltimore Ravens, a mindset. This Tampa team has a mindset of go sideline to sidelines, multiple hats on the ball. They like to be disruptors. So the Raiders, fortunately, are playing really good physical football. The Kansas City game, I thought they were the better team, but they didn't win the game. And that's been what we've been talking about all year long, is what can the Raiders do when they have the lead to sustain the lead? When they get back into the game and they're in the game in the fourth quarter, what can they do to finish the game off. There was miscommunication in the last game on the final play as they were trying to get Daniel Carlson to kick the game winner. I'll ask the coach about that as he's coming up here in a little bit. But I bring in the great Lincoln Kennedy, who's on the broadcast and one of the greatest tackles to ever play for this organization. And Link, I'm assuming you and the family had a great Thanksgiving, even though you were traveling back home from Kansas City. How are you?
Well, I'm good to be with you, JT. Look, I've come to the realization that fall holidays just aren't for me. So we don't plan Thanksgiving, Halloween, Christmas stuff. And this one, having to travel on Thanksgiving to get back to Kansas City was not the case. But I did cook for the family, and so everyone got a chance to eat while I was boarding the plane and flying to Kansas City. But it's good to be with you, man. What a heartbreaking loss. It really was.
Yeah.
I heard you in the opening. And I've been talking about it all week. The amount of resound and fight this team has showed me really leads me to believe that this coaching staff needs another try. And I'll say that to say this. This coaching staff came into this situation saying, you know what, I think we have a plan with Aiden O'Connell. We're going to run the ball. We're going to set up play action. That's never really come to fruition. And they really never got off the snide as far as running the ball. We still see the difficulties running the football. But they have shown some promise. What I've seen out of the recent weeks since the coaching changes happened, I've seen more fight. I've seen the offensive line play better. I see the run game get progressively better. And more importantly, you got a quarterback in Aiden O'Connell who feels somewhat comfortable back there a couple games into it. Probably the most comfortable game I've seen play was in the Kansas City game. And it's really unfortunate the way that ended, JT, with the missed snap, because they did show a great deal of fight, and the Raiders should have won that game.
Yeah, and Lincoln, they came down in that final possession, and a lot of things had to go right. They wanted to run an extra play. When did they spike it or not? We've been down that road, and we move on to the opponent. But it's just unfortunate. At that point, you had a lot of young players on the field. Yeah. Jackson Powers-Johnson, Aiden O'Connell, Michael Mayer, Dylan Parham here. So as I'll talk to the coach about it, hopefully it was a teaching lesson going forward for this team, a young team, and they don't make that mistake again, and they're more fluid at the end of a game.
Well, there's always been, for me, a feeling of a good team is working through adversity, figuring out a way to win. I think the Raiders are close. Now, where does that judge on the overall scheme of things? It's going to be a long season. We're entering week 14. We still got some weeks to go. The Raiders can go up or down from here, obviously. Every game is another opportunity. But what I've seen so much out of these young guys is the amount of fight of being thrown to the fire. Because I'm a big believer you can't make the club in the tub. So put those guys out there, have them do what they do, and they've reacted pretty well. I'm impressed.
Lincoln, as we look towards Tampa, they're a pretty good team here, and they find themselves in games. I mean, the game against Carolina, they lost, and they had 30 seconds left, and Baker set them up for the game-tying field goal. Then they win, and that put them right back into the hunt with the Falcons, who tripped up against the Chargers. This is a team that cannot afford to lose a game. They have been a resilient team, but they find themselves in a lot of games where they're behind and they need Baker dramatically to come back, or they're ahead and their defense gives up points here. So the road team has won the last 4 matchups between the Raiders and the Buccaneers. You just talked about how the Raiders played in Kansas City. They get some extra time off because they played on Friday here. How do you think that affects their cardio, their ability? Because there's still a lot of players as we wait for the injury report who are banged up.
Well, that's a big thing. You've got to get the rest as much as possible, so you look forward to times like this. No one really likes to play on Thursday or Fridays, but it does give you a little extra time to respond for the following week. So I'm hoping to see the team respond well to AP and his coaching staff allowed them to get some rest over the last couple of days. It'll be interesting to see, because I'm of the mindset that if I was in that locker room, I would be hungry to go out there and prove myself. We just went toe-to-toe with the defending world champs, and it was a mishap at the end of the game that cost us the game. Learning from that, I'm looking forward to going out there and striking somebody. So I'm ready to go back out there and play a game.
Yeah, we saw Baker, what he did when he was at the Rams for a cup of coffee. But around the league over the last 2 years, Joe Flacco and his resurgence when he was in Indy, Jameis Winston and what he's doing in Cleveland. And I go around the league. It's interesting, Lincoln, these high draft picks. Baker was number 1. Jameis was number 1. And for whatever reason, they played on some teams that struggled. Then they got a chance to play on better teams. Talk about the stability of still these young quarterbacks who are veterans, who are getting a new look with another team that might be better, and now their whole career opens up for them again like it's doing for Baker Mayfield.
Well, I can speak from experience that a new start, a fresh start, can be good for a player, especially if you have the right circumstances. In my situation, I came up from came up from Atlanta before I went to Oakland, and was a starter ever since I put on the Raider uniform. That being said, you look at Baker Mayfield. There's a lot of pressure that comes when you're a top-round draft choice, number one draft choice. A lot of pressure, especially on quarterback. Baker's been sort of a journeyman around the league and found his place in Tampa. They love him. They respect him. I'm hoping that we can get a little revenge, because I didn't appreciate the way he beat us when he was in the Rams uniform. The way we lost that game, that was disheartening. So you got another chance, but this is a chance at this particular time, JT, where a lot of times when you're out of the playoff hunt, all you can think about is spoiling other one's placement or opportunity. So it's a great chance for the Raiders to probably do some damage to the Buccaneers, along with their division and their playoff hopes.
I like you said that, Lincoln, because a lot of fans want to talk about next year. We'll get to that in the offseason.
Yeah.
We had Rich Gannon on earlier in the week, and Rich said something very interesting. He talked about wanting to play great down the stretch, winning more games, because it gives you momentum into the offseason when you have the workouts and teams come together in OTAs. You remember the guys who come back about finishing strong. And that's what happened last year with Antonio Pierce. He became the interim head coach, and then the team took off. They didn't win every game, but they played at a much different level. Can we count on that with the Raiders down the stretch? Because they've shown no quit. They're playing hard. And they're playing with so many young players and backup reserves, like the game Chason had. Chason's a former first-round pick. You can tell that he's putting it on tape, not only for the Raiders, for everybody else. There was no Nate Hobbs. There was no Epps. There was so many good players. Christian Wilkins, Malcolm Kuntz, not available. And they almost beat Kansas City with 5 defensive starters. Link, I think I texted you. Where would the Raiders have been with all 5 of those defensive starters, who are all good players, healthy and playing great in Kansas City? And I'm impressed with the effort on the defensive side by Patrick Graham and that staff.
I agree. I think the sky's the limit when you talk about the would-be starters and what we've seen flashes out of those guys that you just mentioned who are no longer with us. It's anyone's guess. I mean, going into that situation, I was worried about this young defensive backfield against these sturdy receivers for Kansas City. I mean, they went out and got DeAndre Hopkins. You know what they do with Travis Kelce and stuff like that. So they have a way of spreading the ball around. And they did a little bit of it. But Patrick Mahomes, as you mentioned, did not have a great game. And the Raiders should have won. And when you have a quarterback of that caliber that does not have a good game, you got to find a way to win. So to answer your question for the remainder of the season, I'm hoping that we continue to see this amount of fight, and I'm hoping to see some surprises. Maybe they pull a rabbit out of the hat. Maybe they get the run game going to where they rush for over 200 yards. That would be a surprise. You know, those types of things. But I think that the offense is moving slightly more fluid under Scott Turner. I think Aiden O'Connell's got a nice little comfort thing going on. Obviously, you see what he's doing with Brock Bowers. You talked about it. Jacoby Myers is big. And of course, I want to involve the other receivers, DJ Turner, of course, the severity of his injury, but Trey Tucker, those types of things. Get those other guys involved, because I do believe we have weapons. And I watched the Kansas City game from the All-22 just the other day, watched it over again, and I noticed in the second half, the Chiefs wanted to bracket Bowers. They want to have a safety over top, and they want to have a linebacker or a nickelback underneath. So if that's the case, you put 2 guys on one, there's going to be somebody open somewhere. And it's up to Scott Turner and Aiden O'Connell to figure out, dissect that defense, break it down, because more teams are going to play Brock Bowers just like that. It's how teams play Tony Gonzalez, how teams play, Travis Kelce, all those great tight ends. That's what they do. So they're going to try to take that away.
Lincoln Kennedy joins us on Raiders Rundown, as he does every week. I want to stay with Bowers, because you get to the games early. You've been broadcasting for this team a long time. You see warm-ups from your perch, and then you watch a game develop. I'm fascinated what you think about his preparation from when he comes out early warm-ups and he comes out with pads. If he doesn't get a target on the first 2 drives, how he stays at a high level until he gets engaged. And then it seems like once he catches those first 2 or 3 balls, everybody in the building knows he's getting it, and he still gets separation. What's that like when you watch him from the broadcast booth?
Very impressive. And to be honest with you, JT, it's quite fun. The thing is that I've had, during my broadcasting career and playing career, I've been surrounded by great tight ends and watching great tight ends. I mentioned Tony Gonzalez, and you've got Gronk, you've got Kelce, you've got Antonio Gates, all these great tight ends that I played against or have watched play. Now we've got one on our squad, and Mayer, I think, is not far behind. Once we figure out how to get him involved, I think that's a big piece. If you're going to run a lot of 12 personnel, 2 tight ends and stuff like that, you're going to have a way of opening up the passing game to free up those guys, especially when they want to double somebody like Brock Bowers. And I've seen some pieces out of this offense that shows me that they can do it. As I said, the offensive line is playing a lot better, and that's allowing AOC or quarterback to feel more comfortable to survey the field.
Well, I'll tell you, Tampa Bay has a lot of injured players in the secondary. So big question here for you. Look, this team wants to run the ball. It is the DNA of Antonio Pierce, and they're running it better with Sincere McCormick, who I'll get to.
Yeah.
But they got an opportunity now with Aiden O'Connell coming off a big 300-plus yard game and attacking downfield to throw it. So I know you like to run it, Lincoln. I know when they run it behind you, you love it. But now are we seeing a team that's going to say, look, we got a banged-up Tampa Bay secondary. They got a lot of reserves, very similar to the Raiders. Just get out there and embrace the shootout. How do you see this game plan?
Well, I throw the caution to the wind. If you're the Raiders, you're going out there to win, and you want to play to win, and so you want to let everything hang out. I think sort of the evolution of Scott Turner as the offensive coordinator along with Aiden O'Connell has really given them an opportunity to really showcase Aiden's ability of being able to throw intermediate to long down the field. I think they relish in that. There have been so many times earlier in the season when Gardner Minshew was at quarterback, you saw guys run streak routes and strike routes that ran it kind of half-ass. I mean, they weren't trying to get open because they knew the ball wasn't going to come to them because it was already predetermined it was going to go to someone else. So opening up the entire sort of passing game, the passing vault, is something I think this offense needs to do.
I love what we're seeing with Scott Norv Turner. I look at the numbers here in front of me. Aiden had the fourth best quarterback rating in Week 13 at 116.4 on the road against the world champs. And he threw for a career and season-high 340 and 2 touchdowns and took the team downfield to eventually set up what could have been the game-winning field goal there. So I think that this is the guy now. Just let him play. Let him play. Open him up. Let's get Brock Bowers an individual record. Let's get him this Offensive Rookie of the Year. Let's get him. Let's feed Brock. And then as we're showing here on YouTube, that touchdown to Trey Tucker, Link, you know me, I've been saying that. Even if it's incomplete, throw it deep and let them know on the other sideline that you have the arm to do it. You have the speedster to do it in Trey Tucker. So do you think we'll see some more deep balls coming up? Because Aiden O'Connell throws a really good long ball.
Yeah, you saw in that last highlight where he had to stop and come back to it for the ball. But the thing is that I don't mind you taking deep shots. Just make sure you're reading it right. And what I mean by that, quarterbacks have to look off safeties. You have to look off deep personnel so you're not throwing the interceptions. Don't get so greedy to where you're turning over the ball because you'll afford to have that. This is not a team that can really lack or give up possessions to really score points. So you want to take care of the football. So I'm all like that. I don't mind throwing intermediate. I don't mind throwing long. In fact, I saw a number of defenses the Raiders have faced throughout this season start forgetting about the deep ball. They're not going to throw it deep, so we're not going to worry about it, the transition. So you still got to go through your progressions and right reads in order to maintain integrity and not turn over the ball. I think that's the biggest key, I think, for this Raiders offense.
For Scott Turner, the Raiders since Week 11th now are 5th in net passing yards at 293.3. Through Week 1 through 10, they were 18th. They're better in rushing yards per game as we look at the numbers here, 81.7, and third down conversion is up a little bit. So a two-part question, Link, not only on Scott Turner and Norv and the pace of the game. I like the pace of the game. I love him getting in and out of the huddle a little bit faster. I want to see that continue. And then Joe Philbin with the offensive line. What are you seeing there with their communication overall and how the offensive line is pass protecting?
Well, see, Joe Philbin I tip my hat to him. He should be coach of the year, if you ask me, for what he's been able to do with this offensive line. And I know it's just a position coach. The thing that they're doing a lot better is, one, communicating, first and foremost. Two, I found them better man blocking, going downhill than area blocking or zone blocking. I've seen improvement to that. So calling those plays where they're blocking men and pulling guys around is much better suited for this offensive sort of personnel. But overall, what Scott, in the help of his father, Norv, has been able to do, they've been able to settle down this offense and give Aiden O'Connell opportunities and options in order to make plays. It's not just this ball has to go to Adams when he was on the team, or it has to go to Myers. It's not just it has to go to Brock Bowers. He's gone through his reads, and he has used his reads. Now, sometimes he goes a little quick and checks down, and there are times where I think he's looking at the rush. But overall, I think coming off of the heels of this Friday game, JT, he should be much better off and much more comfortable understanding what he can do in this offense, more importantly, what this offense could do with him.
Sincere McCormick, 5.7 on rushing attempts. Something's popped with him. And I go back to last year because we all love Zamir White and Zeus. He was banged up. This year just did not work out well for him. But he took off starting Christmas. Christmas at Kansas City was when he took over and played himself into that job. And I wonder what you think of Sincere McCormick as the practice squad player signed, brought up to the team. It seems like it's his job to lose. We'll wait to see what happens with Alexander Mattison. I think the Raiders just found a player now with fresh legs and rhythm who's working well with this offensive line and coaching staff.
What I appreciated most about Sincere is that he doesn't do a lot of dancing. He gets downhill right away. That is a big step for this offense. You don't need to be going side to side, get downhill right away, find a lane and hit it. He's not the biggest of guys, so you don't know how much how durable he can be. But he has taken care of himself, and he's become somewhat invaluable with that backfield being as marred up as it is with injuries. So I like Sincere. I like the way this offense has gone, and I just like the rhythm that they've gotten in. I know it's not a heavy run offense. I get that. I accept that. But get downhill quick, and you see from this exit, you're seeing the highlights right now. The line of scrimmage is being blocked. The front seven are being blocked. You don't see any penetration in the backfield. As soon as a running back gets the football, he's cutting. And that's what you need to be successful. He's getting downhill right now, hitting the line of scrimmage. I love that.
Hey, finally, when I look at the Raiders running game versus the Bucs defense here, Tampa Bay gives up 117.2 a game. That's 12th best rushing defense in the NFL. And in the last 3 games, the Bucs ranked 5th best opponent rush yards per game. So if the Raiders want to play violent and they want to try to run, I'm all for that. It sets up rock and play action, but they got to be careful here because this is a game that, Tampa Bay can get hot quickly. They can go downfield and hit Evans twice for 2 touchdowns. You're down 14 points when you blink here. So I wonder what's going to happen here because in the last 3 games, the Buccaneers have really come together, and they have this Bucky Irving who's playing really well, Evans. This is going to be a chess match here, and I know the Bucs need this game. We watched Hard Knocks. It debuted in the AFC North last night, and they went around, and Cleveland's out of it. Baltimore's in it, and Cincinnati's kind of out of it, and then Pittsburgh's there. But you saw all the coaches telling every team as they stood in front of them, every game was like life and death. We got to win these games. We got to get into it. So the Raiders are coming into that storm. They got a Buccaneer pirate ship there. The Raider Nation is pirates. They're going in there, and this is a playoff game for Tampa Bay. One loss along the way here can keep them out because the wild card in the NFC is a mess. So if you don't win the division, it's kind of like what the Niners are dealing with the NFC West. If the Niners don't come back and catch Seattle, they're not getting in via a wild card and linking this Atlanta, who we'll see on Monday night in Tampa Bay. I think they're going to be coming out fired up in the next 2 weeks to save their season and try to get a playoff berth.
The stat you just read lead me to believe that teams feel they can do better passing the ball against this Buccaneers defense than running the football. And there's something to be said about playing possession and ball control. That's true. But you also want to generate points. And when you get into shootouts or get into the possibility of shootouts, offensively, Tampa can score. They do have the means to be able to score, and they can score well, especially if the quarterback is on point. And my point is this, is that you don't get away from what you do and what we've seen over the past 3 games. The Raiders offense has been passing the ball more. Use that. That now becomes your strength because before then it was very futile if you were going to get any offensive prowess during a game.
All right, Link, as you go to Tampa, Burn's Steakhouse is one of the greatest steakhouses in the world. In the world.
True story.
When we go to Super Bowl there, it's unbelievable. And as you know, it's one of the great cigar cities. And you're a big cigar guy there because of what they do in Ybor City and all that. So where does Lincoln Kennedy rank Tampa Bay, St. Pete, Tampa, St. Pete as a road trip city for the Raider Nation?
I love it. The Raider Nation always travels well, so you're going to see plenty of them down there. I love it. I'm been one of those guys who've been somewhat of a recluse where I'm getting away from more and more of the crowds because of what we do in the line of work that we're in. But for the most part, anytime you could put me on the beach and have water hit my feet and sand underneath my toes, I'm a happy camper.
Safe travels, Lincoln. Thanks for doing this as always.
I'll see you, brother. Have a good one.
He's the greatest, man. Lincoln Kennedy, we love having him on here every week, and Lincoln gets it, knows what this team does from the offensive line to access with the coaches and the fans of the Raider Nation. So when you see Lincoln Kennedy outside Allegiant Stadium or on the road, give him a big pat on the back. We love what he does here. We love that we have a flagship radio station. Here's our lineup, the morning tailgate, 7 to 10 a.m. Rich Eisen, who always talks about the Raiders, 10 a.m. to noon Pacific. I'm on every day, noon to 2. And Q Myers, 2 to 5. Q's going to join us here in about 30 minutes. He's our insider this week. So we got a big show lined up, and as you can tell, Everybody is working. Silver and Black Productions never stops. You know, there's a lot of teams, 32 teams around there. I think less than 10 have a coach's interview. We have it because the coach is kind enough to do that. All the shows that we have on television, YouTube, on radio, I know Raider Nation appreciates it. Win or lose, we're trying to give you everything we got here. And it's going to be one important off season. Everybody knows that. But until then, we'll talk about the upcoming opponent. And when we come back, my conversation with head coach Antonio Pierce on the final sequence, what happened in Kansas City and what it will take for the Raiders to play another spirited game, a physical game on the road in Tampa Bay. There's some history there, too. You know the history with the Buccaneers, so the Raiders will be up for that. We continue here on Raiders Rundown.
It's game day. The day we've been waiting for. And this is more than just a game. It's a passion, a lifestyle. It's time to suit up, Raider Nation. This is Raiders football, where we all bleed silver and black. It doesn't matter who you are or where you come from. Here at the Raider Image, you're part of our team. Every hat, every piece of gear. Let your loyalty show out. Whether you're in the stands or cheering from home, we've got your back. Feel the confidence, own the game.
We
are the Raider Image. Your game, your gear. Exclusively at the Raider Image.
Celebrate 65 seasons of Raiders football. Be a part of our legacy with a special edition brick featuring the exclusive 65th anniversary logo. Get your brick installed at Allegiant Stadium along with a replica for your home or office. Order now and support the Raiders Foundation, benefiting military and veterans, wellness initiatives, and youth development. Secure your place in Raiders history today at RaidersFoundationBricks.com.
We welcome in head coach Antonio Pierce. So, Coach, let's get back to the final sequence in Kansas City. There was miscommunication on the snap at the end. What did the players learn from that this week?
A lot. I don't think just player. I think our whole team, right? Just we always talk about the attention to details, focus at the very end. And listen, instead of focusing so much on that last play, I'm really want to look at how that team responded. You know, that ball was at the 8-yard line. Was it 5 straight completions right down the field, real smooth, and then obviously just some communication with the snap and the timing, that's off. But the battle, the effort, the determination, the dedication, the way these guys competed for 4 quarters, that was, even with the loss, and I get it, even with the loss, that was the best game we played as a team. All 3 phases I thought did something that contributed, they played hard, they strained. Again, 15 seconds short.
Yeah, I thought the effort was tremendous, and Aiden played great. What did you see with his footwork and his progressions? Because the ball came out fast and very decisive.
That's the key right there, right? With Spags and Kansas City, all the pressure they're bringing from different angles and everybody coming. I thought he did a really good job with the hots, sitting in there, stood in the pocket a few times, and then actually had some plays where he was a little mobile, you know, and you saw some footwork and moving around in the pocket, things that he's been working on. But for a guy coming off, 5-6 weeks, not playing, not practicing, and going out there first game in a hostile environment and having a game he had and making some big-time throws, again, put us in position to win.
You nailed it with Sincere McCormick. You had him ready to play. What'd you see on film when you looked at it, especially his aggressive play once he got through the defensive line?
It's the same thing that's been shown up all year on practice squad. A guy that just runs through contact, very decisive, good vision, runs hard, makes it really easy, I think, for offensive linemen because they know right now just get a hat on a hat and he's going to be running right by you. So we've done a good job with that in the run game. 2 weeks in a row, I felt like we're moving in the right direction. Obviously, this game was a good output for us from a rushing yard standpoint, but really good, with the O-line, hat on a hat, and both running backs, Amir and Sincere, hitting the hole, man, and just really giving us an opportunity to be a balanced offense.
Tell us about Brock in a game where the targets might be slow in the beginning or you got to see him adjust. What is that like? Because if the targets aren't there on the first or second drive, it doesn't slow him down. It seems like he gets better, and then if he gets a lot of targets early, wow, you just keep feeding him, and he has these monster games.
Yeah, I'll tell you a secret. He's the number one target every play. Now, teams are doing a good job of matching up, playing zone, double teaming him in man coverage, putting their best players on him. I mean, he's getting matched up against the number one corners now in the last 3 weeks. So it's been very interesting of how teams have attacked Brock. But I think that also gives a credit to our offense because now you're seeing Jacoby Myers make big plays, Trey Tucker. But the one thing about Brock, just throw it in the area around him. Just throw it. I mean, these one-hand catches. I mean, his catch radius and his ability to make tough catches in traffic is really impressive. And just a hard, gritty player, man. And, again, he's running away from corners. He's a matchup problem. Everybody sees that. And, again, he's just getting better and better. And I think that's the one thing you really want to see from all our younger players, right? Them getting better later in the season. But Brock is – when the game's on the line, you got to find a way to get the ball to 89.
Yeah. Coach, the defense played amazing. They held Kansas City at under 20. You had 5 defensive starters out. If we go back to Christian Wilkins, and I do on the radio, and Epps, and Malcolm Kuntz had a monster game last Christmas there. Then you look at Jacorian not there and Nate Hobbs. Those are 5 starters who are out, and the reserves and your backups played big enough to make that a one-possession game.
Yeah, this is a resilient group, man.
Yeah.
Next man up mentality. We've been talking about that all season, you know. It's a shame the injury bug hit us this year, you know, that Thursday going into the Chargers week, and it's been just consistent each and every week. We're losing somebody. But I think, again, it's a credit to the coaches and the players of stepping up for that opportunity. I mean, you got DCam in there, and listen, I mean, he got some tough matchups, right? And he's going to learn a lesson on the road, but he doesn't blink, he doesn't flinch. And just all these younger defensive players that were playing, especially at the D-line and the secondary, that's a telling of a staff that's working their tail off and players that are still bought in, right? Even with our record, listen, man, I got this opportunity. I told him even, today in our team meeting, listen, we got 5 games left, and this is all about how we finish the season, right? It didn't go the way we wanted, but we could finish and still change the narrative. And that's what these guys are doing. That's what Kansas City was really about. And I think they did a good job of getting us there again, coming up short, but for these younger players to step up was huge.
Tell us something about Chason and his story. Wow, when he came around the edge there, he was flying, a former top draft pick. What is he playing for, his future here in this organization? He really popped in that game.
Yeah, listen, KC, I mean, he's been showing up throughout the season, but I thought this was a really game where you mentioned Malcolm earlier, who had a huge game last year, 3 sacks in this one. And KC had a sack and a half and did a great job. I had those 2 penalties early. Once we moved on from that, the speed off the edge, because we know we're getting with Max, right? They're sliding to him. They're chipping him. You got the tight end. Hell, 2 or 3 times he's getting triple teamed.
Yeah.
So there's other opportunities in these one-on-one opportunities for these other players on our team and role players we talked about to make their stance on the team and where they want to be at for the future of the Raiders in 2025. And listen, he's a first-round talent for a reason, right? You see the traits. You see the physical traits there. And the more and more we can get players like that in our system, these blue collar guys and top-tier players, the better we'll be.
Tell us about Todd Bowles and your background, just seeing him and the culture that he has and his style of coaching there in Tampa.
Yeah, I mean, just, a gritty group, tough, hard-nosed. You know they're going to be a defensive-style team, even when they won the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. But they're pretty good on offense, right? And they got these 2 backs. That's a tough challenge. And they got 13 Mike Evans. So they've got a good balance now with their offense. You know what they're going to do defensively. They got these big old bodies inside with Vea, number 50, inside. They got the 2 bookends there. Probably a little banged up in the secondary, but, they run what they run, and that's the best part about it. They're going to bring pressure. You're going to get some sims, sim 2, sim 3s, and things of that nature. So we got to declare where the pressure's coming from, and Aiden needs to have a game like he had last week where we're getting the ball out quickly.
Bucky Irving in the last 2 games, 337 scrimmage yards and 2 touchdowns. When he gets through a hole, he really puts pressure on linebackers and safeties.
Yeah, you talk about an impressive rookie. He's impressive, right? I know Rashad White very well, the other running back. But when you watch film, all of a sudden, look at this number 7 guy. And when he gets in space, he's made it very difficult for guys to make tackles. You've seen some really good football players miss tackles on him and make guys look silly in space. So we got to do a good job of roll call to the ball, get on them. Don't get these guys going. Try to limit those space plays, and hopefully we got some vice tackles and get the ball off of them.
Mike Evans catches a lot of 50-50 targets. If they're in the red zone, they just seem to throw it up. There's only a few guys, Devontae when he was here back in the day in Green Bay, where you just know if he gets one-on-one coverage, they'll just give him a ball to go up and get. He's spectacular.
Yeah, one of the toughest matchups we got going into the game. I'll be honest. This guy's a physical matchup. He's got the height. He's got the size. And they don't hide that they're going to throw him the ball.
Yeah, I know.
There's no hiding to it. They're like, look over there, single coverage, I'm throwing the ball over there to 13. So we got to do a good job competing. I got a lot of faith in Jack Jones and DCam, and obviously we can't leave them guys one-on-one throughout the game. We got to give them some help there. And then when Mike Evans comes across the middle, Spill and Diallo got to punish him.
They have Levante David, and I'm going to go all the way back to Derek Brooks. As a former linebacker, they have a culture at that position, similar to what the Ravens have done over the years, what you did when you played with the Giants. We're an organization, they figure out their linebackers, and that's really the core of how they play. What's that about?
Yeah, he fits Todd Bowles throughout.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, he's smart, he's tough. I mean, what is he, in year 13? He's still running like he's a young buck.
Yeah.
And more importantly, you can tell him just really coordinating and anchoring the defense, right? Getting everybody lined up. They're dealing with injuries like we are as well. But you haven't seen a decline in his play. I mean, here's a guy that still plays in backfield, still matched up on running backs pretty well. A lot of respect for him. And like I always say, I always admire watching other linebackers play. But, much credit I give him. We got a pretty good one in Robert Spillane.
Absolutely. And your red zone defense now, 1.88 yards per play. That's lowest in the NFL. What is working with your red zone defense over the last month?
Yeah, I really a credit to our staff and our players buying into it. That's something we started in off-season and training camp, and we had some rough stretches here the last couple of weeks, especially against Kansas City and Cincinnati in prior weeks. But, really just made some changes, dialed up. The red zone's all about your eyes and details, man, right? And quarterback play, that really plays an effect to it as well. But if we can be dialed in, give these guys different looks, make them hold the ball a little longer, and then obviously our front is really doing a really good job of winning their one-on-one matchups.
Last one, a long road trip, Raider Nation up there in northern Florida. You got a couple extra days off after a tough game. The mindset of this team going into Tampa Bay?
Grind, man. Just keep grinding. Blue-collar mentality. Look, we've played pretty well on the road. I know the record doesn't show that, but if you look at us on the road, we've been in games, had a big win, obviously, early in the season in Baltimore. Thought we was right there last week to put a bow on that one. Did not go the way we wanted to at the end. But I'm very proud of how our team has got up. We changed our schedules. We get up early in the morning. We get on East Coast time. And then we go out there, man, and we say it's us against the world. And Raider Nation's been with us throughout. All our road games, man, the fan base has really been there. And I appreciate it, even in this tough year, just still staying with us and being true.
Good luck, Coach.
Thank you.
To be a Raider is to be bold, powerful, and loyal.
Once a Raider, always a Raider.
Raider Nation family is authentic, with a heart here in Las Vegas. We are often imitated, but can never be duplicated. Why?
The autumn wind is a Raider.
Because there is only one nation.
Now the team has to galvanize and play like they haven't played this year.
He doesn't really have a weakness when you watch him. He's athletic. He's big in size. He's a really good route runner, really good in space.
There's another opportunity for the Raider Nation. The Black Hole's been great everywhere we've been, home and away. Raider Nation's always loud.
I want people in the locker room who are ready to fight for what it means to be a Raider.
Welcome back to Raiders Rundown. Always a thrill to have Q Myers join us live in the studios. And Q, we begin. You're in the locker room a lot. You get a lot of access. How did the team react after the miscommunication in Kansas City as they prep for Tampa Bay?
Well, you can imagine it was really emotional, right? I mean, listening to some of the audio, listening to guys like Colton Miller, who's a captain. Sometimes in this business that we're in, what you don't say tells you what you really feel. So you'll hear Colton Miller, and he was talking, and then he'd have a long pause. And it's just kind of collecting his thoughts, feeling the emotion. That was an emotional game, right? The way that they lost that game when everyone believed that they were going to win. I'm watching thinking, they're going to pull this out, right? And I think everyone, Raider Nation, got fired up and excited. I think the team really believed that here it is. This is the one we've been fighting, scratching, clawing. We're going to get this one. And then for a miscommunication, not a missed field goal, miscommunication happened. That was a heartbreaker.
Let's get on to Baker Mayfield in Tampa Bay. As we were talking before you came on, he's played so well to put him himself in a good position. Again, often the number one pick overall. We were talking about Jameis Winston, other great players, Carson Wentz early in his career. They get one shot, usually not on a good team, and then they have to have a rebirth again. Man, Baker's taking advantage of that.
You know, and it felt like he was almost in that situation where he was going to be done, right? He was going to end up being a glorified backup for the rest of the – I mean, he goes to Carolina. I thought that was a really good opportunity for him because him and Coach Rule both needed to win, and they didn't. I thought, oh, okay, well, maybe he's not going to get it done. Goes to L.A. We all know how that happened. But, man, in Tampa Bay, they found something there, and he found something, and he's comfortable. And the one thing I know from Baker Mayfield from his time at Oklahoma, Texas Tech, wherever he was, he always, when his back is against the wall, he always thrives, right? And so you saw that when he went to Tampa Bay, and they didn't know what to expect from him. And then all of a sudden he went and got him into the playoffs, got a victory in the playoffs, and well, now he's the guy. And so now they rally around him, and he's a dangerous dude. There's a reason why he was drafted number 1 overall.
Yeah, I don't think he plays in Tampa Bay if he doesn't instantly have chemistry with Mike Evans and Godwin when healthy. So he throws an unbelievable 50-50 ball. I talked to Coach about it. When they're inside the red zone, I don't know how many times they're going to do it, but there's going to be 2 fade 50-50 balls to him where he'll get a flag, he'll make the catch, and unless you pick it off, you can knock it down, but they're going to continue to go to him, and Baker's got great chemistry with him.
Mike Evans is one of the most underrated wide receivers in the league. Yeah. You know what I mean? I mean, it's so unbelievable. He's been so talented for so long, and he's a big dude. He can go out and high point the ball like you mentioned on the fade. I remember when he was at Texas A&M. I mean, he made Johnny Manziel fantastic. He did. Right? And a lot of people said, man, look at Johnny Football. Look at Johnny Football. No, look at 13. Look at Mike Evans. And he has been that guy, a constant. No one really talks about him, maybe because he's in Tampa Bay. I don't know. But when you talk about the best wide receivers in the league, very rarely does Mike Evans' name come up.
How do you think DCam will do against him? Because he's had a lot of reps.
Yes.
I mean, a lot of reps in the last couple of weeks, which is really important going forward into next season, but it's go time now.
It really is, and that's what I'm excited. That's one of my matchups that I'm looking forward to is DCam because, look, he was really baptized by fire, against Denver and Cortland Sutton, and he's kind of got a similar body type like a Mike Evans, but he didn't have a great day, but he didn't flinch. He didn't, put his head down. He didn't walk off like he was sulking. He just came back. And even in the end of that Denver game, when the Raiders needed to get off the field, there was a deep ball thrown his way, and he was right in perfect position. I see him continuing to grow every time he's out there. And he's a rookie. He's going to make mistakes. He's a 4th-round pick. He's a guy that started the season with a hamstring injury, but I see him rounding into form. And so tests like this are going to be great for him.
I think Raider Nation, the fans, don't want to see it all the time, but the young players playing means a lot.
Yeah.
I pointed out 5 defensive starters didn't play in Kansas City. Wilkins, Coops, Epps, Jacorian, and Nate Hobbs. Not there. If all 5 of those players are playing in Kansas City or in any game, I think the Raiders, along with Max and what we're able to see, they're going to be better. But what do you think overall, not so much a grade, but the perception of this young defense under Patrick Graham? And Patrick Graham didn't expect to be playing with these players into December.
Well, that's the thing. I feel like this unit with all these guys that are backups that are, just kind of being thrown in there, they're still competing. They're still giving them a chance. Guys that got picked up off waivers, Chase on, right? I mean, he was a former 1st-round pick. Tom Telesco gets him off waivers. He's playing a significant role because there's no Malcolm Kuntz, right? So, I mean, all these different guys are stepping up. Darnay Holmes is out there playing more than expected. Again, Nate Hobbs is a guy that we all thought he's going to have a big-time year, going into a contract year, and now he's banged up. Jacorian Bennett was awesome coming out of training camp. You were there. You saw him. He was great in training camp, been great all season long. Now he's out. I mean, and guys have to step up. But the fact that they've been able to tells me a lot about the coaching staff and those players.
Let's get to Aiden O'Connell because at the end of training camp, I understood why they went with Gardner. He was more experienced. He had bigger games, and it was a tough decision. I didn't think either quarterback proved that they were worthy to start. They went with the veteran. But you look at what Aiden did in this last game with 340 yards and 2 touchdowns, the 3rd highest quarterback rating. What's it like when you stand in front of him at the locker room and he's trying to get more and more comfortable in his role?
I think that he's very comfortable in who he is and very comfortable in his skin and understands what his role is and that he's going to give everything he has, every single opportunity he has. And I really think that this pairing with Scott Turner is a good thing, right? I think that Scott Turner, and this is something that was pointed out to me before we ever saw him play against Kansas City, felt like Scott Turner in this offense is better fit for Aiden O'Connell, right? And so I was interested and curious to see what it was going to look like, but he goes out there and throws for almost 350 yards and 2 touchdowns, and he's stretching the ball. We hadn't seen the deep ball, I didn't think. We hadn't seen this deep ball like that all season. And we see it in one game. And so it's there. There's obviously some areas that still need to be cleaned up, and Aiden knows that. But for a guy that went on a short week, just coming off IR, was wondering how his thumb was going to be. Was he even going to be able to rip it like that? Goes out there and has almost a flawless game. It was pretty impressive.
Look, it's too far off to get into it, but whatever happens in the offseason with the draft pick of a quarterback, Aiden is still friendly with his contract.
Yeah.
He's gaining more and more experience, and he's proving that he's comfortable being a starter here. You nailed it when you said this. He came off IR and played in that game.
Right. Short
and
week.
They threw him to the Wolves on a short week against the world champs, and he was fantastic. And even on the final drive, they came up short.
Right.
He led that team under a lot of duress and the environment and how loud it was in Kansas City.
What he impressed me about on that final drive is I was pretty critical of him throughout the course of the game. It looked like passes over the middle he was missing. Wasn't looking really comfortable. On that last drive, when he had to have it, he hit a couple of passes right over the middle, one to Brock and one to Jacoby, I believe, that were like, okay, those are big-time throws. And they needed to have it. So it's one thing to do it in the first quarter, but to do it in the fourth quarter when you know that, hey, the pressure's on, you got to get it done. I was pretty impressed by that. I want to see more of that. I was pretty impressed from what I saw, though.
I know you spoke to Lincoln Kennedy. We just had him on before you. What did he impress with you when it came to Joe Philbin and the improvement with this offensive line?
Old school. That was one of the big things. He said Joe Philbin's old school, right? It was funny. Lincoln said, you got to kind of laugh when an offensive lineman, a former offensive lineman that was as good as Lincoln Kennedy, gets a laugh before he answers. He likes what he sees. And so that's been one of the emphasis I've had with him the last 3 weeks since Philbin's taken over as the interim offensive line coach. What have you seen from him? He said, look, he's going to alignment and assignment. He's going to get these guys lined up right. He likes that they're doing much more man blocking than zone. He said the Raiders as a team are better when they're blocking to a man as opposed to an area. And so that was something he was pointing at. He said he's going to get them right. And they've been right.
Is Sincere McCormick the right player at the right time?
Yes. I was a big fan of his coming out of UTSA. I mean, this guy had more than 1,400 yards back-to-back seasons his sophomore and junior year, right? Double-digit touchdowns. He was an absolute – he's like a superhero in San Antonio. So I was excited about him. Unfortunately, he's been injured the time he's been with the Raiders since 2022. He runs like AP has talked about all season, what he wants to see, someone run strong behind the pads. He's done that. He's done that. That's who he is. Now he's getting an opportunity.
Let's wrap it up with Brock Bowers. And from your perspective, you do a big national show on ESPN, your podcast, everything you do here at the Raiders. How do you tell this story with the people you interview as you're watching this in real time?
It's so funny because he's just a superstar. I mean, he really is. And it's been a while since we can say that, man, the Raiders have a bona fide superstar that is homegrown on their own that is hit right away, right? Some guys grow into the superstar, but this guy just walked on the scene as a superstar, very humble, doesn't talk too much about anything in the locker room. Interviewing them, they're usually about a minute long, maybe a minute 15. I mean, because he's real quick with his answers. He's just a football player. And it's so funny. We hear Offensive Rookie of the Year. Who's it going to be? Jaden Daniels. Is it going to be Bo Nix? And now it's like, wait, hold on. There's a tight end there in Las Vegas named Brock Bowers that's got something to say about this conversation.
Real quick, I remember when Waller broke Timmy Brown's record, and I'm like, wait a second. How did that happen?
Right.
Can you imagine if he passes Tim Brown and Darren Waller?
Right.
And he's really on pace to do it. This is not a wish. If he gets the targets, I think he can do it.
I think so, too. I think that this dude could do whatever he wants. Sky's the limit. I mean, this guy, even now that teams are focusing in on him and trying to take him out, they're still scheming him open, right? I mean, that's the thing that Scott Turner's done the last couple of weeks. This guy's having double-digit catches, back-to-back weeks, or 3 times already this year. He's a guy to watch out for. He could break some records.
Thanks for everything you do. Thanks for coming in.
Absolutely appreciate you.
There he is, Q Myers, as we continue, and we're going to play and tell everybody about our lineup coming up here. As you know, the morning tailgate. Rich Eisen, I come on every day, noon to 2, and then you have Q Show, which comes on right after this one, and Q does a lot. He's got a big 3-hour show. I mentioned what he's doing. Obviously, with ESPN, fantastic to have him in here. So as we come out of this and we take a look at what's going to happen next for the Silver and Black, the Silver and Black are in a unique position now as they get ready down the stretch here. We're going to look at what they have to do with the rest of this schedule. Is it spoiler? Yeah, it's kind of spoiler going forward. Can the Raiders find a way to get another win in there? I know fans are saying, what do wins do? Wins do everything to give momentum to a team heading into the offseason. Rich Gannon said that this week. Lincoln Kennedy, the coach, tells me that every week. So I want to see the Raiders do what they've been doing. Entertain, put on a show, play like it's the last game of the year every time they go out, play with tremendous energy. And remember, a really important point, Raider fans travel. I saw them in Miami. You're going to see them in Tampa. You're going to see it down the road in New Orleans. Raider fans are part of this global NFL economy. They're going to spend money on the road to see their team win, to see excitement and the camaraderie of being with the Raider Nation. And that's why we do this show. For everyone at Silver and Black Productions, unbelievable job today on the YouTube channel. I moved to my YouTube page, JT the Brick YT. Please subscribe to that. And everything that we have at Raiders.com is tremendous. Vinny Bonsignor, Levi Edwards on radio on the flagship coming up next hour. We'll just keep it going here. Countdown to the Raiders in Tampa Bay. That's a long road trip. The Raiders travel department is the best in the business. They'll get them there safe and sound, and then the Raiders will come out of the tunnel at Raymond James ready to go. Thank you, everyone, for watching Raiders Rundown and listening on the flagship.